They mocked the mountain man for living alone high above the valley, until a deadly blizzard trapped an entire town beneath the snow. Then, in the middle of the storm, he found fresh human footprints where no one should have been alive. Who was out there, and how did this storm change the town forever? Watch the full video and subscribe our page to find out. Before we start the story, tell me in the comments where are you listening from and what time is right now. A cold wind swept across the mountains long before winter officially arrived. The first snowflakes drifted through the air like tiny white warnings, but nobody in the valley paid much attention. In the small frontier town below, people laughed, worked, traded goods, and prepared for the holidays just as they always did. Far above the town, hidden beneath a rocky ridge, stood a lonely log cabin. Most people thought it was the strangest place anyone could choose to live. The cabin belonged to a quiet mountain man named Ethan. He rarely visited town except to trade supplies. He wasn't rude. He wasn't unfriendly. He simply preferred peace over crowds. Whenever townspeople saw him hauling firewood or carrying heavy sacks of beans and flour, they would laugh. "Planning for the end of the world again, Ethan? Winter only lasts a few months. That little cabin won't save you when a real storm comes." Ethan would simply smile, tip his hat, and continue walking. He never argued. The truth was simple. He respected the mountains. He had lived among them long enough to understand something many people forgot. Nature did not care how confident humans felt. A sunny morning could become a deadly blizzard by nightfall. A clear trail could disappear under 10 feet of snow. A strong man could become helpless in a matter of hours. That was why Ethan prepared carefully every year. By late autumn, his woodshed was packed from floor to ceiling. Shelves inside his cabin were filled with dried meat, beans, flour, rice, and preserved vegetables. Barrels of water lined one wall. Every crack in the cabin had been sealed against the cold. His loyal husky, Shadow, followed him everywhere as he worked. While the town enjoyed dances, card games, and evening gatherings around warm stoves, Ethan spent his days preparing. Many people thought he was paranoid. Ethan thought he was being practical. As November faded into December, strange things began happening. Hunters returned from the mountains speaking about unusual weather. Ranchers noticed their cattle acting nervous. Birds migrated earlier than normal. Even old men who had spent their entire lives in the valley admitted something felt wrong. Yet, life continued. Children played in the streets. Merchants sold holiday goods. The church bell rang every Sunday. Nobody truly worried. Then, one evening, everything changed. Ethan stepped outside his cabin and looked toward the western horizon. His heart sank. A massive wall of dark clouds stretched across the mountains. The clouds were thicker and larger than anything he had seen in years. Suddenly, the wind shifted. A sharp gust cut through the trees. The sound carried something unsettling. Danger. Ethan stared toward the valley below. Tiny lights glowed peacefully in town. People were eating dinner, telling stories, and preparing for bed. They had no idea what was coming. The first heavy snowflakes began falling. Ethan whispered softly, "This is going to be bad. Very bad." The storm arrived before sunrise. By morning, the entire valley had disappeared beneath a wall of white. Snow blew sideways through the streets. Wind rattled windows and slammed shutters. Within hours, roads vanished completely. Inside the general store, worried townspeople gathered around the iron stove. "This'll pass tomorrow," the shopkeeper said, but his voice lacked confidence. An old rancher named Walter slowly shook his head. "The wind's wrong." Nobody liked hearing that. By noon, the telegraph lines were dead. By evening, every road leading out of town was blocked. Still, many believed things would improve soon. Families stayed indoors playing cards. Children laughed while watching snow pile against windows. The storm continued. The second day arrived colder than the first. The wind became stronger. Snowdrifts grew taller. Men spent hours digging paths between buildings, only to watch those paths disappear again. That afternoon, a young ranch hand stumbled into town nearly frozen. His face was pale. His hands shook badly. "My horse collapsed 2 miles south," he said. There ain't no getting through this storm. Silence filled the room. Fear began spreading. The third day was even worse. The bakery was nearly out of flour. The doctor had limited medicine. Coal and firewood supplies started shrinking. A water pipe burst inside the schoolhouse where stranded travelers were staying. The mayor called a meeting at the church. Lanterns flickered across worried faces. Snow hammered the windows outside. "We need a plan," the mayor said. "If this storm keeps going, we'll have to ration everything." People exchanged nervous looks. Then Walter spoke. "There's one place that's ready for this." Everyone knew exactly who he meant. Ethan, the mountain man, the same man they had mocked for years. Pride kept many people silent. Nobody wanted to admit they had been wrong, but deep inside, they already knew. Ethan had seen this coming. By the fourth day, fear became impossible to ignore. A widow living at the edge of town had almost no firewood left. Her teenage son searched through frozen sheds looking for anything that would burn. A rancher's pregnant daughter was expecting her baby soon. The doctor worried constantly about his limited supplies. People were no longer afraid of inconvenience. Now they were afraid of what might happen next. High above the valley, Ethan watched the storm from his cabin. His fire burned steadily. His supplies remained secure. Yet he wasn't comfortable. He kept thinking about the people below. Children, families, elderly neighbors. He wished he could help. But the mountain trails had become extremely dangerous. One mistake could send a rider tumbling into a ravine. For now, he could only wait. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. While checking traps near a sheltered ridge, Ethan noticed footprints. Human footprints. Fresh ones. His stomach tightened immediately. Nobody should have been on the mountain during a storm like this. He followed the tracks through blowing snow. They led into a narrow forest, then suddenly disappeared beneath drifting snow. Ethan searched carefully but found nothing. Someone was out there, lost, or hiding. The thought stayed with him all evening. Meanwhile, back in town, the mayor and deputy made a difficult decision. If the weather allowed it, they would climb to Ethan's cabin. They needed help. Several volunteers agreed immediately. Among them was Walter. Not everyone supported the idea. Many people still knew little about Ethan. Years ago, he had arrived in the valley, built his cabin with his own hands, and stayed. Nobody knew much about his past. That mystery made some people uneasy. That night, the deputy asked Walter a question. "Do you trust him?" Walter stared into the fireplace. Then he answered quietly, "I trust the mountains to be dangerous, and I trust Ethan understands them better than anyone." The fifth day arrived. The storm showed no mercy. Entire sections of town were buried. Some houses could barely open their doors. Food supplies continued shrinking. Parents tried hiding their fear from their children, but children noticed. At the church, another meeting was held. This time, nobody argued. Everyone looked exhausted. "We can't wait any longer," the mayor said. "If there's even a small chance, we must reach Ethan's cabin." Walter stood immediately. "So do I." Others followed. They gathered ropes, blankets, lanterns, and supplies. The climb would be dangerous, but staying in town felt even more dangerous. At the same time, Ethan returned to the forest searching for the mysterious stranger. Shadow suddenly stopped. The husky's ears stood upright. He stared toward snow-covered pines. Then Ethan saw movement. A dark figure. Human. For a moment it appeared between the trees. Then a powerful gust filled the air with snow. When visibility returned, the figure was gone. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Whoever that person was, they had somehow survived 5 days of blizzard conditions. It seemed impossible. That evening, the volunteers began climbing the mountain. The journey was brutal. Snow reached their knees. Wind stole their breath. More than once they considered turning back, but they kept moving, hour after hour. Finally, through the darkness, they saw a warm glow. A cabin window. Hope surged through the group. At nearly the same moment, Ethan spotted their lanterns below. He immediately opened his cabin door. Shadow barked excitedly. When the exhausted volunteers finally reached the cabin, nobody spoke for several seconds. Walter removed his hat. Snow covered his shoulders. His face was tired. Then he smiled. "Looks like you were right all along." Ethan chuckled softly. No, I was just prepared. Without hesitation, he invited them inside. The warmth felt heavenly. The visitors stared in amazement. Neatly stacked firewood filled the woodshed. Shelves overflowed with food. Water barrels stood ready. Everything was organized perfectly. Years of careful planning surrounded them. Relief spread across every face. Then suddenly, knock, knock, knock. The room froze. Everyone looked toward the door. Ethan slowly opened it. A man stood outside, covered in snow. He could barely remain standing. His beard was frozen. His face was pale. He collapsed forward. The group quickly pulled him inside. After warming him beside the fire and feeding him hot soup, the truth emerged. He was a traveling trapper, the mysterious stranger. The storm had trapped him deep in the mountains. He had survived by sheltering inside a small rock cave and carefully rationing supplies. The footprints Ethan discovered belonged to him. At last, the mystery was solved. The following morning brought something nobody had seen in nearly a week. Sunlight. Golden rays spread across the mountains. The storm was over. People stepped outside and stared upward in disbelief. Blue sky. For the first time in days. Hope returned immediately. Ethan wasted no time. He organized supply trips down the mountain. Volunteers carried food, blankets, medicine, water, and firewood back to town. Everyone worked together. Neighbors helped neighbors. Families shared what little they had. The deputy organized recovery efforts. Walter guided supply teams through safe routes. Slowly, life began returning to normal. Days passed, then weeks. The snow eventually melted. Businesses reopened. Children returned to playing outside. The church bell rang once again. But something important had changed. Nobody laughed at Ethan anymore. Months later, during a town gathering, the mayor stood before a large crowd. Ethan stood nearby looking uncomfortable. He never enjoyed attention. The mayor smiled. When everyone else ignored the danger, one man prepared. When everyone else doubted, one man respected the mountains. When we needed hope most, that preparation helped save our town. The crowd erupted into applause. Ethan lowered his head modestly. He didn't feel like a hero. He had simply done what he believed was right. From that day forward, nobody called him the hermit. Instead, they called him a friend. Many townspeople began storing emergency supplies. Families improved their homes. People learned the value of preparation. Most importantly, they learned not to judge someone simply because they lived differently. Ethan continued living in his mountain cabin. The mountains remained his home. Shadow remained at his side. But life was different now. Children often visited to hear his stories. Travelers stopped by for advice. Friends came to share meals and conversation. The lonely cabin no longer felt lonely. And whenever dark winter clouds appeared above the distant peaks, people in the valley would glance toward the warm lights shining from Ethan's cabin. Those lights reminded them of an important lesson. Sometimes the person everyone doubts is the one who sees danger first. Sometimes preparation looks foolish until the day it becomes necessary. And sometimes the place everyone laughs at becomes the very place that saves them all. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way till the end. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. It really helps us a lot. If you want to watch more exciting stories like this, don't forget to subscribe our page right now. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is right now? And if this story touched your heart, please send some stars. Every single star gives us huge motivation to keep creating more amazing videos for you. See you in the next story. Take care of you, friends.